Αγνή παρθένε δέσποινα, αχράντε Θεοτόκε.
Hello, welcome to the Orthodox Logos. My name is Ian Silver. I'm here with my co-hosts, my co-host Nathaniel Harmon.
Greetings.
And then
I'm John.
Our friend John, who hasn't been on the show yet, but
he's been present. He's been present in the room for some recordings, which has been kind of humorous.
one recording.
Because he just sat there and awkwardly, like, man, this is horrible. Why am I?
That's what I do. Sorry, my neighbors are stomping around. So, okay. But yeah, the topic of this video is going to be our little synopsis / review on the Northman. Nathan saw it a week prior to me and John. Me and John just went and saw it. So
was it like yesterday or the day before?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
2 days ago.
It's fresher in their minds, but I think I have a particular opinion that they will not agree with. We will see.
Yeah, we'll see.
Should prove to be quite interesting, and yeah, we'll see. But
yeah, with that being said, there's definitely going to be some spoilers in here. So if you know,
or if you're familiar with Norse mythology, there won't be.
True. But I guess we could start off by kind of just giving, a very, what did you think of the movie?
I don't think we should do a summary, but we should definitely first impressions. So
yeah, that's what I mean. First impressions. What did you think?
So walking out of that movie, I won't say troubled, but I found the whole thing to be a rather interesting experience. I thought it was one of the best movies that I've seen out of Hollywood in a long time. And that is a rather horrifying thought. And we'll get into why I find that horrifying here shortly. But it was very well shot. The storyline was really creative. It was very accurate in its interpretations of paganism and its portrayals of paganism.
Mm-hmm.
And it also, just with regard to the whole idea of a pre-Christian worldview, it did a really good job showing that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'd agree with that.
I liked it. I definitely think I want to see it again.
That's more than I can say. I don't know that I want to watch it again, but it wasn't a bad movie in the sense of it was very violent, but it wasn't gratuitous, which is something that I appreciate.
I appreciate that.
I really hate gratuitous things.
Yeah, we were mentioning one of the things I liked about it is it wasn't politically correct.
Oh no, certainly not.
There was some stuff which we'll kind of talk about in the end, as far as like symbolism that might have been kind of pushing in a more politically correct manner. But overall, it wasn't politically correct. I'm glad there wasn't like an absurd amount of sex scenes. I think there was only one, and it was very like mild. They didn't really show anything at all.
It was more than I would have wanted, but it also wasn't pornographic.
Yeah.
And it was kind of showing exactly what that thing that they were participating in was about. So
yeah.
I thought it made sense.
Well,
what are your thoughts, Ian?
On what?
You asked for my general thoughts. Well, what are your general thoughts?
I thought it was good. I mean, I'm a big fan of like the Viking show and the Last Kingdom. I like the pagan Norse mythology epics, and
sagas.
I really like the sagas, and I like those type of things. So I don't know. I don't really have any criticism. I feel like it's still too early for me to kind of give a complete review on what I thought. I thought in general it was a great movie. I haven't been to the movies in a while, and I'm glad that was what I went to see. Yeah, I think it was great. So Garrett, or John rather, sorry.
That's my name too. That's my baptismal name.
Yeah, John.
All of the names.
Yeah, I'll take either name. I really liked it too. I thought it kind of fell apart in the end, and that's something that I know Nathan and I kind of disagree on a little bit. But I loved it. Robert Eggers is like, if I wrote a movie, I'd want him to direct it. Like, his instincts are so good, and that really shows in this movie. But yeah, I just thought it kind of fell apart a little bit at the
What,
end.
what else is Eggers directed? I feel like
The
his
Witch.
name is familiar, but I can't think of where.
The Witch.
The Witch, if you ever saw that, it's about like kind of Puritan New England, I think. And there's a
Okay.
woman and her family,
Oh, it's the
from
one
this
where they
movie.
get kicked out of the
Yeah.
settlement. Okay,
Yeah.
I've seen the beginning of that.
Yeah. He did
Okay.
that one. He did one other one, which
We
the
couldn't.
Lighthouse
The Lighthouse. Yeah.
with Robert Pattinson and
That just came out recently,
Yeah,
too, didn't it?
a couple years ago.
2019, 2020?
yeah, it was
Okay.
recent.
He's got a great style,
He does. His style is fantastic. Yeah.
but
Interesting.
who's the main actor?
Oh, Skarsgård.
Oh, yeah. It was,
Alexander Skarsgård.
Alexander.
Yeah,
Skarsgård.
he's in Vikings,
He's
Is he?
right?
no, Ragnar is one of the Skarsgård boys.
Brothers.
So they're all
brothers. Three brothers.
They're all so the Skarsgårds are all Alexander Skar or not Alexander Stellan Skarsgård's kids. And
Mhm.
I will definitely say this, just from the acting standpoint. Like I've seen Alexander Skarsgård and stuff before, and he doesn't look like his dad. But in this movie, he looked so much like his dad.
Mm.
I mean, there were particular moments when it would cut to his face, and I'm like, man, that could be Stellan Skarsgård.
You
like
see it in
15
the
years ago.
eyes,
Yeah, like
right?
around his eyes and
Yeah,
around
his
his mouth.
eyes
It's like,
really,
oh my gosh,
yeah.
that's Stellan Skarsgård's kid.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, where do you think we could start?
Well, I think I don't really have any thoughts chronologically where I'd like to start, although I do. I don't know if you guys do.
I know. I have some notes.
Yeah, I'm just
What-
waiting
what
for
about-
that.
What
I
about
like that one.
the visual theology?
What precisely do you mean by that?
Well, just throughout the movie, would you think it was? Did you think
Okay, so like the
their interpretation of
pagan rituals.
yes?
So I think those were pretty good. That again was one of those parts where it was like,
If you like farting and burping and drinking out of a dog bowl,
well, no, it wasn't even that. It was very realistic. Like one of the things that this made me think of is there's a play. I think it's called the Bacchae. I forget who wrote it. It's a
I've heard of
Euripides, maybe.
Mm.
I forget
One
who
of
the
Greek
I forget who
poets.
the Greek one of the Greek poets wrote this play called the Bacchae, and that's what it reminded me of. Was this whole notion that if you're trying to interact with these gods, they are gods of chaos, and it's going to be a bloody mess.
he just got me squished.
Oh, I can
You're too thin to squish.
There we go.
scooch over this way.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Just so I can sit back with you guys.
It- No, it reminded me of the Bacchae a lot, and I do think those things were very true to form. We've talked about this many times. One of the issues that you run into with modern thoughts on paganism is that it's kind of this like earth worshipping antique set of traditions that are strange and maybe a little bit weird or creepy to us. But it's not that crazy, and it's actually respectable. And this actually showed it. It's like, no, this is a gnarly.
Respect.
Well, no, respectable. Like you look at movies like.
What do you mean by that?
So you look at the Viking show, right? There's a
Mhm.
scene in one of the. I've only seen like the first 4 seasons, and then after that, once
Ragnar
Ragnar died, I was
dies.
like, then the last season, even with him, was super weird, and I didn't like it.
Spoiler.
Yeah.
Well,
Lot of
it's
those today.
the season has been or the show has been completed for like 2 years,
Mhm.
so who cares,
Yeah, I'm not actually.
right?
You've never seen it.
I've never seen it.
I'll let you borrow
I
it.
don't want to see it. Thank you though.
But there's this episode when they're at a oh man, I forget what they call it. It's a thing, like in the precise sense of the term. It's a
Yeah.
clan or kingdom meeting,
Mhm.
and they have this scene where there's sacrifice of animals, and then they end up doing human sacrifice as well. But they clean it up a lot to the point where it's one of those things we look at and say, yeah, that's not cool. That's very bizarre, and it's a very disagreeable thing to be doing. But it's this ancient, respectable thing. It's this ancient, respectable tradition that even though it has some darker bits, it's okay, and it's not alien.
So do you mean in kind of in the way that sometimes pagan things are portrayed in like a hootin' and hollering type of way? This is like an actual like orderly type of thing. Does that,
Yeah.
is that
A
what you're
lot of
getting at?
a lot of modern interactions with paganism try to make it look really nice
Oh.
to our modern sensibilities. Like I said, even though in the Vikings one,
Mhm.
There's
Oh,
human
you're saying
sacrifice.
that's not quite.
That's not
Right.
that's not how
You're
it
saying
is.
in this movie they
Oh,
showed exactly
okay.
how animalistic it is.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that the Northman movie shows these scenes as you would have seen them in 750 in Norway,
Right.
but it's far closer to the spirit of what it would have been. And it
Interesting.
actually is trying to, I don't know if it was intentional or not, but it was showing what a pre-Christian heathen world looks like.
Interesting. Okay. I like that. That is perspective.
Yeah, I could do without the whole farting and burping and
Well, but that was necessary for it because they're trying
they're showing
to,
that they're animals.
well, they're trying to channel their animalism. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, but also weren't they doing it in the context of like, oh, you're a dog, you want to be a man, show that you're a man, and he farts and he burps, and it's like,
Right.
so
yeah.
to them that's what a man is.
Right.
What is? Well, you know
Well,
what I
it's,
mean?
it's
like,
definitely probably an oversimplification, but the whole notion is he's because the father in that, the king, is being shown as a wolf, and
mhm,
he's being shown as a wolf pup. So they're trying to say you need to mature into your role,
mhm.
and that has certain side effects
Hmm.
or certain. It has a particular aesthetic, which you then see him exemplify as a berserker. When he's when they're doing that ritual before they attack that Slavic town.
You mean
Right.
they're twerking?
That's what that would have looked like, though. They're working themselves up into a battle frenzy, right?
The twerk scene?
Yeah, no, I remember the twerk
The
scene.
campfire twerk scene?
Yeah,
But that
when
was-
they're all making like wild. It looks like kind of that Maori thing a little bit, doesn't it?
Yeah, the Hawkeye.
Yeah, it's probably a similar type of thing that they're
Yeah.
trying for.
Right.
Get yourself into like a.
Right.
I'm a scary man.
And
type
he
thing.
looks pretty scary in
Well,
that.
all
Yeah,
of them-
I
all of
wouldn't
them
wanna go
super
up against
scary
that dude.
in that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was, but I thought that was, like I said, it was accurate. That makes it frightening because this is what the people who, this is kind of what we talked about earlier. This whole notion of people saying, yeah, if only Christianity would go away, we could be really nice people and just kind of do our own thing and it'd be free love and people could drink a little bit more and it would be okay. And it's like, no. If you do that, you're going to devolve into barely above an animal. And you're going to do awful animalistic things.
Well, they also like we said, they did rituals to make themselves less human.
right.
Well, they wanted to be like animalistic and possessed and like
Well, because all the old gods, they had like a more singular focus, right?
Mhm.
Than
the moon god, the sun
Right.
god, the
And
god
so
of this.
you end up becoming like one-sided. You know what I mean? Kind
Right.
of.
Well, there's
Right.
this
You
theory.
become more like a. Yeah.
You become more like Odin, or you become more like Thor, or Freya, or
Right.
Loki.
Right. But interestingly, even in that case, cannibalism isn't necessarily something that you want to be doing. That's bad. So in the Volsung saga, or the Volsunga saga, there's this early on in the Charlie Foxtrot that creates Sigurd. There's the last of the children of Volsung, if my memory is correct. His name is Sigmund, right? And he is captured by one of the Volsung's enemies, and along with all his brothers, and they're all killed by a wolf. Like it's very it's actually very close to in the Silmarillion, the way Baron's quest with Sauron, or when he has his interaction with Sauron, how that plays out. They're all stuck in a dungeon, and every now and then a wolf will show up and kill one of the companions and eat them. Right. So it's almost identical, but like that's where Tolkien got that, I think. But what ends up happening is Sigmund's sister eventually manages to get him set, or like break him out, and he goes and lives in the woods and is being a wild man. And he says, okay, well, here's the deal. Every time, because his sister's husband is the king who betrayed them all. He says, okay, well, whenever you have a son, send them out to me in the woods, and I will train them up, and they will help me be an instrument of my revenge, of our family's revenge. And the problem with that is all of her children from this king are weak. All of the sons are weak. They're not good at fighting. They're not tough. They're very much like their father. So eventually what Sigmund's sister decides to do is transform herself into looking like someone else. She goes, sleeps with Sigmund, conceives a child, and
Incestually.
Yeah, incestuously. And that child is Sinfiotli, right? And he comes out and trains with Sigmund, and they eventually, in their travels, they come across this cabin with two old men in it, and there's wolfskins in the cabin, and they put the wolfskins on and become werewolves.
Hmm.
And that demonizes them both so much that they get in a fight, and Sigmund kills Sinfiotli as werewolves. And then through a series of events, Sinfiotli is resurrected, and they swear up, like they wait until they become human again and burn the werewolf skins because they're like, that's not something we want to do. But that's kind of some of the imagery you see in the Northman.
Yeah.
When they're channeling their Berserker state, that's what they're appealing to.
They
That's
even
what that
have
story
they
is.
even have the wolf. They're all that one scene where they're raiding. They're raiding for the first time, I believe.
Yeah.
That morning where he catches the spear,
Mhm.
throws it back.
He's wearing a wolf
They
skin.
all are.
Yeah.
They all have them on their heads, and they're like making as they're going through the tall grass. I believe they're like
They're crawling on their
snorting and
hands
they're
knees,
making little wolf noises. Yeah, it's very animalistic.
Well, because that scene that follows, what you guys so delicately refer to as the campfire twerking scene, which is not what that is, but
It was.
that's
little bit of
them
it, you know.
They were channeling wolf demons, or
Yeah.
or gods to inhabit them and turn them into
It was
wolves. Like you hear them talk about
It
this
was
whole notion.
it was a ritual.
Yeah, you hear them talk about this notion until you return to your the form of a man.
Right.
It's like they're possessed and they're transformed in a way,
Right.
Yeah.
and they know that's what's happening.
That's how important.
Well, that's what they want. Yeah.
And that's how important like speaking things is. Like they're using like when they're saying, become like wolves. And
Right.
they're howling and they're doing all these things. It's like they're, for lack of better words, they're manifesting it.
Yeah.
Just like whenever we start a prayer with in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy
Well,
Spirit,
it's not even manifestation. They're opening themselves up to it. They're saying, hey,
evoking,
demon over there that can do this, come help me.
evoking, I guess you could
Right.
say. They're evoking an evil presence to come within them so they can use it for their advantage, whatever that may be. Usually,
Right.
pretty brutal.
But stepping on from that for a moment, concerning the whole idea of the general plot of the movie, it's very much a revenge story. What did you guys think of that? I know you guys have both kind of mentioned this notion that when Amleth, who is the main character, when he finds his uncle Fjolnir, who is the person he's sworn to kill, you guys have said that it seems that Fjolnir is kind of living a repentant life, and I found that to be curious because I certainly didn't get that. But I'm curious as to what you guys, what your thoughts were on that.
I would say when I said that, and shout out to Ian, our friend Ian, also John is his name, his baptismal name. We kind of talked about this, and maybe repentance wasn't the right word, but when he arrived,
You could say a penitent life, maybe.
Yeah.
Penitent life is
he arrived and noticed this man isn't exactly who I thought he was or who he was when he did these things. Not that he doesn't have that within him, but he's like teaching his son.
Well, to start from the beginning, Fjolnir kills Amleth's father, and Fjolnir is Amleth's uncle.
Yeah, his uncle kills his dad.
Right.
He's on this whole revenge trip to go kill him. He becomes a slave in order to go, work as a slave on his colony, on his farm. Gets there, and I think maybe he doesn't realize this, but from my perspective, it's like, okay, this guy's kind of been taken out of his position, and he's humbling himself a little bit. He's even teaching his son at one point, how to do things, and he's like, "What? Don't we have slaves for this, Dad?" And he says, "Well, you'll never know if you'll be a slave or a king. So basically, you gotta show your slaves that you're as strong as they are, so that they work as hard." And I think, I don't know, maybe you're right, repentance, but maybe a penitent style of life is what he was after, or maybe forced into. I think plays a lot.
Because he was humbled because he had basically the kind of kingdom
taken from. Yeah. Which could be, we could go into like the symbolism of that, or like the result of, him doing something so treacherous and barbaric that, and then, that's just kind of how these things work out. It's like, no, everybody's out for themselves.
Right.
In the Viking world. So what do you think about like that as far as,
the repentant,
or like the main character kind of in my opinion, right then you kind of see, the main character, all he cares about is vengeance. And the other guy who did these heinous acts seems he cares more so about just his little farm and his family. And
right. They set out, they make it evident to you that, like, I mean, you've seen a lot of people who aren't really great people at this point, and they make, like, one of the first times they make a thing to say, this is like an okay, maybe type of kind of person is the bad guy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so at least the filmmaker wants us to know that, you know?
Or gives us the means to interpret it that way.
Right.
Where you're like, hold on, the main character, you think he's doing the right thing, but then pretty soon in you're like, is he actually doing the right thing?
Right.
Or is he just so concerned about himself and fulfilling this vengeance
Right.
that he's lost touch of like what it means to be
To be what?
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
It's like the hero's journey, and Nathan was
Yeah.
saying this, it's like an inverse of the hero's journey in a way, right?
Kind of. I wouldn't quite call it an inverted hero's journey per se.
Because it does have all the aspects and archetypes of a hero's journey.
Right. But one of the ways I think you see that Fjolnir is still a catastrophic failure in not doing his job is that his oldest son, because the conversation he has with his son is the son that he has by it's Nicole Kidman's character. I forget what her name is. No, it's Gudrun.
Gudrun, yeah.
But she is the one you find out later. She's the one who kind of sets up the regicide of her husband, who is the king, and her own son.
Yeah, she wanted her son killed too.
Right. So Fjolnir's not actually the architect. He's kind of the pawn.
Exactly.
Right.
She's like, I sent him to do it.
Right. But the son that Fjolnir had before all this happened is this very weak, pathetic excuse for a man.
Yeah.
He's like Kylo Ren.
Yeah.
Yeah.
he very
I
much
got
is.
that. Yeah,
Like,
I didn't think, yeah.
When you see him as an
He
adult,
like gets angry and pouty all the time.
Yeah,
pouty.
he gets very
and
upset
you can
over
just tell he doesn't have that in him.
yeah, he doesn't have any
Power.
thunes in at all.
But he's got a lot of pride.
He has tons of pride because of his position. That's the only thing that he has, the only reason he has any pride. But one of the most interesting scenes is right after Fjolnir's given this speech to his youngest son. You know, you don't know what your lot in life's going to be, so you need to be able to do all these things. He looks over at his oldest son, who is sparring with a couple of other warriors, and he just gets his butt whooped.
Yeah.
Like, it's not even, he fought well. He just gets beat up.
And
And he like throws his
and he throws a temper tantrum.
Yeah, throws his shield and his sword down, he storms off.
Yeah, so he's already kind of a failure as a father in that regard.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
So he's
And he
trying
doesn't-
to make up for it with his new son.
As opposed to trying to have done better by his oldest son. Because the other thing as well is, when all these events happen, his oldest son is like a year old. He's super, super young. So he's got the chance to do this, but he has failed for the first 15 years of this kid's life. Right?
Yeah, he doesn't have a great life
No, Fjolnir really doesn't.
at all. He loses his kingdom. His oldest is a brat.
Yeah.
His youngest is kind of a brat, but almost shows more nobility
Well, his
throughout the movie in some scenes. You know, he's at least trying
his
to.
youngest one is just a child. Like
Yeah.
that's the thing. Like there's the game scene, whatever that game was called. It's kind of like cricket.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
Like,
kinda
and that's-
cricket, yeah.
That's kind of the youngest son has pride in his family, not pride in himself.
Right.
He loves his father. He loves his mother.
he
has
wants to
pride.
show his worth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I kind of that was one of the saddest parts is when he got killed, because that was
Did he get killed in that
Yeah.
scene?
He didn't get killed in that scene.
no, not in that scene, but when he does get
Oh,
killed,
God.
that's kind of the saddest point, because he's actually the only one who is not failing in his duty as a man in this house.
He would be He would be a good heir to the throne.
Well, he would have been a bear because he doesn't actually raise a hand to fight Amleth until Amleth kills his mother.
Right.
And even that is a very tragic thing, because that wasn't supposed to happen. Amleth is, even after knowing what she did, Amleth doesn't want to kill her.
Right.
And he doesn't have any hatred for her, which is also one of the very tragic things. But when he does that, the boy, who now realizes the laws of kin strife have been violated, is like, okay, well, now I have to take up arms as a child.
Yeah.
And it's obviously a little more emotional than that, but that's kind of the logic of it,
Right.
which is terribly sad, but very interesting. But all that to say, like, I see your point about Fjolnir living kind of a penitent life, but it is
But he also didn't have a choice but to humble himself.
right.
Everything
It's
was
not,
taken from him.
yeah, it's not something that he chose.
He wasn't
to
like, oh, I'm going to give up my kingdom and go live on a farm and
right.
and
No,
repent for all these things I've done. He's like, I'm here, and this is what we need to be doing, and one day we'll take back the kingdom. He still has
Mhm.
that motive inside of him, like, we're going to take back the kingdom.
Right.
And, you know, he has all of his pawns and his slaves.
What did you guys think about the sword that Amleth gets? That was something that I thought was pretty interesting.
What is there to think? I don't know.
I mean, like how he came, how he learned about the sword.
Mhm.
then how he took
Also-
it, and then how he ends up having to use it because of the sword's nature.
Was that supposed to be not the guy in the cave, not the predecessor, I guess you would say, to William Dafoe,
hmm
or the successor to
The
William Dafoe?
successor, yeah. The
Not
guy with his
him.
head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's not Odin, of course. But do you remember the one scene
The
where
one
they're
scene.
where it's like they're at the cave and they show a guy with a beard, like a cloaked figure?
I remember something.
Do you remember? It was, like,
small
very
that. It was
brief.
very quick.
It was like the entrance of the cave,
Mhm.
and there was a bearded fellow. I'm not sure if you remember that.
I don't
think it
remember.
was supposed to be Odin.
I think it was supposed to.
That sounds about right.
Yeah.
Because I think there was some ravens involved in that
Oh, yeah.
one too. And obviously, if you guys don't
It's
know about
Norse mythology.
yeah,
there's
there's
going to be ravens. everywhere.
ravens and foxes and
Mhm.
a lot of animals involved.
Mhm.
But I mean, as far as the sword, what do you think about this? Is there any symbolism in it that you saw, or does it remind you of anything?
I mean, it seems like just the blade of vengeance.
Well, it's a cursed
That
sword.
is what it is.
It's
right?
yeah,
Well, it's a cursed sword.
and it
Right.
possesses him.
Right. Because what's interesting about it is, oh man, actually I didn't start this. It's like the way that he uses the sword is not just in vengeance. He does it in a particular way. He raids at night. He never actually engages in open combat. Like the only time he engages in open combat with it, he dies.
Yeah, he uses the butt of it to hit people.
Well, no. When he uses it in open combat, face to face with his enemy. That's with Fjolnir at the very end of the movie.
Oh yeah,
That's the only time he uses it in open combat.
because
he
it
dies.
can only be unsheathed at night or at the gates of hell.
Right.
Which I thought that was kind of cool. I like that whole aspect of the movie.
Right, but he uses it in what you might classify as dishonorable combat, stealing in at night, killing people when they're in, taking a leak.
Well, that's
Right.
how he got it too. He broke into someone's tomb,
Right.
fought this dead guy.
Yeah, fought a Draugr. Like
Yeah.
that is a Draugr, a tomb dweller, or a barrow dweller.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Epic too.
It was a cool.
That was a cool fight. That was very cool.
The whole thing was very aesthetically well done, but
Mhm.
because he got the sword with these rather screwed up motives, right, and because he was utilizing a cursed blade in a dishonorable fashion, there is only one outcome with that. Like the blade is almost what determines his fate.
It's like the ring.
Kind of, yeah. Actually, very similar. So, Lord of the Rings, not some other ring.
Yeah, it's like the ring. Like most people that acquire it, they do so in a dishonorable way, and then it
Mhm.
possesses them, and then everything they do from that point is based on like this. I don't know, just like they're holding on to that. That's all they care about.
So I don't know if you guys want to open it up this much, but like
sure.
I kind of think about it like just that these kind of the pagan patterns, the Oedipal pattern,
Mhm.
of him and his mother, kind of her trying to
Right.
bring him back into it.
That was weird.
That was weird.
That was a very bizarre scene.
But I think it's very true that all of the patterns inherent in paganism, they're broken patterns. And so if you're
Mhm.
trying to make things right through something that's wrong,
Yeah.
it doesn't
Well, it's
work.
No,
It's-
not at all.
It
It's-
just doesn't.
That's why we'll get to the ending.
Well, it's a Saint.
That's how I feel about the ending.
Yeah.
Well, it's
yeah,
Saint
that's
Simon's commentary on pragmatism and why pragmatism or utilitarianism don't work. It's like if you try to achieve a good goal or a good end by immoral means, everything you do is necessarily evil.
Yeah.
It can't be anything
Yeah.
else.
Yeah.
That's what it has to be.
Yeah.
So if you seek justice, because I mean, honestly, that's what Emleth is doing. He's
That's
seeking
what he
justice,
wants, which is a
noble
He
thing.
necessary thing.
He even says it over and over. All I know is revenge.
Right.
Right.
But he's seeking justice with evil in his heart, using a demon-possessed sword.
Right.
Like that can only end in catastrophic tragedy for everybody involved.
So what do you think about this then? Do you think the movie did a good job showing like an Orthodox perspective from our perspective on their gods actually just being demons?
Oh yeah, 110%. I think so.
The
Yeah.
funny thing is, if you go back into the historical record and like actually look at what was said, it's like modern people would like the Epic of Gilgamesh is
Right.
the big example. We know that wasn't brought forward by Christians. We found the original tablets and translated them, and like those gods are bad news.
Yeah.
They're not.
Lowercase g
Yeah.
demons.
Yeah, demons. Yeah.
Even and it's crazy that even in the movie The
They're
Northman,
not good.
they are recognizing. There's one point where they're like, say something. This isn't the work of the gods. This is a demonic spirit. Remember when?
Oh yeah. When it's after
the first
Emleth
slaying.
had killed the the oldest son's two best friends.
Yeah.
And it's very gruesome. Again, if you have not yet seen The Northman and you wish to, do not take children to see it. It is very violent.
If you took children to see this, you have other issues.
Yeah, it's very violent. And that's not to say that it's bad per se, but
No,
it's not something young children
It was
should
manageable.
see.
Some guts and head cutting and
But
I mean, it was a little worse than that.
yeah,
He made a. Didn't he make a horse?
He made a
out of
centaur.
human
you made a centaur out of their bodies.
body parts. Yeah.
Yeah, but
they even acknowledge, though, like I was saying,
well, they're saying they show up and Fjolnir's all bent out of shape, and he asks his priestess. He goes, "Like, what the heck happened? Which one of my slaves did this?" And the son says, "Well, it's got to be one of our Christian slaves because they worship a god that was nailed to a tree."
Mhm.
and they're blood drinkers.
Yeah, and they
And
drink
they're
blood.
drinkers. Yeah.
The
And
blood drinking comment towards us is
Yeah.
great because it's like,
Yeah.
it's true. Really, it's,
Yeah.
it's true. But it's also like, really, guys?
It's
no, but
yeah.
it's a legitimate pagan misunderstanding of Christianity.
Yeah.
You say you're eating the body of your god and drinking the blood of your god. Like, what the heck is wrong with
Also-
you? That's weird. That's not how this is supposed to work.
Right.
Also,
Yeah.
Odin died on a tree for people who
Yeah.
you know, for pagans that like to be like, oh, your god died on a cross. It's like,
So did yours.
and our god
Except-
made your god.
Well, your god rebelled.
Well, and they've
against our
talked
God.
about too. Like this is the Lord of Spirits guys. They always I can't remember both of their names. at
Father
once.
Stephen and Father Andrew.
Thank you. They kind of talk about that, how like the pagan gods knew part of the story, and so they gave what they knew,
Mhm.
but they didn't have a way to make it kind of full.
Right.
You know, so it'd just be this one little part.
They
You
can
know?
only give a pale imitation.
Well, it's the same with even like Egyptian gods.
Yeah. Whereas Jesus is everything
Right.
together.
Jesus fits in all of the stories.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But no, that's a good scene though. Going back to the Northman scene, because the son is trying to blame the Christian slave, because there's two or three of them, and you never really actually have any interactions with them, which is interesting.
Yeah.
That it's just all you see them from the pagan perspective.
Except there's one part where one of the slaves from Russia crosses himself.
Right, but you never see
Yeah.
the story from the Christian perspective.
No,
it's all
right,
from the pagan
yeah.
perspective.
There's little snippets that
Yeah.
they say about us.
And the priestess to, I believe it's Freya is who he worships.
Probably.
Or Freyr, one of the, I forget which god he worships. I think it's Freya. But the priestess says, no, this wasn't a man. This was done by an evil spirit with a dark blade. And so they're like, oh crap, we ticked off something that
Yeah.
we can't kill.
Well, that's the thing. Like, what do you expect to happen when you worship false gods?
Right, and to an extent, the interesting part as well is that notion is never actually completely debunked, because Amleth is not a man. He kind of is.
Yeah. But he's still possessed.
But he's possessed by demons.
Mhm.
He does carry a cursed dark sword.
Mhm.
Like that's his thing. So the analysis
He's not
is
living
actually,
a life of forgiveness at all.
right. Well, the analysis, the priestess's analysis is correct.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
What the means by which she knows it could be a little suspect. Like, she obviously is.
Well, no, she probably knows it because she can actually see the truth to some extent. She just can't see the whole truth.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, her assessment's not wrong. It's just not entirely accurate either.
Mhm.
But yeah,
It shows. We'll kind of touch on this about the ending, but real quick, not spoiling that yet. One of the things that I've said about it, I think I told you, is like, or we talked about, is how much of a slave to their gods they are.
yeah,
To the point where they are willing to do the most, heinous, immoral acts just to please their gods, for the sole purpose of reaching Valhalla or honor or whatever, or vengeance, whatever it may be. It's like they can't. There's no humbling, no repentance,
Mhm.
unless it's something taken from them. And then they say things like, "The gods have forgotten you." And it's like, that does not sound like.
or that's you weird. One of the best scenes in that movie, I think, was when Amleth is presented with that choice. And I don't know if the movie makers did this intentionally or not, but he misreads the omen. So when he's in that Slavic village, and it's Bjork, that's the actress,
Mhm.
or the person who plays the pagan priestess.
The seer,
Yeah.
kinda?
The Cirrus.
She tells him that there's a point when he's going to either have to
Choose a love for kinfolk,
choose
Or
love for
revenge.
his kin or revenge.
or hate for your enemy.
Mhm.
Something like
Yeah.
that.
Mhm.
And he reads that in a scene later on when there's another slave girl that he's become very close with, who's kind of a witch. Like, she's definitely a priestess kind of
Earth worshiper, I think he calls her.
Yeah, he calls her an earth worshiper, but her pantheon's going to be really similar to his. But
that kind of reminds me of the pagans nowadays.
Right.
Her, right?
Right.
Yeah,
they're like Mother Gaia, Mother Earth.
Right.
But in either event, like he thinks that this refers to when he finds out that she's pregnant with twin children. And this is another thing that I found really weird is the ruler's actually a girl that he sees. It's not a boy. It's a girl.
We had this.
That's
like the politically correct.
Yeah, that's the
wokeness.
one
little
case
tiny little thing. It didn't even it doesn't connect to anything else in the movie except modern.
And it wasn't
and how
super. It
they
wasn't super
show
obvious, but it was interesting.
Guess what? Also reminded
it was.
us of the Green Knight.
Right.
What is it? Mulan.
It's the same.
Or it's like the hero's journey, but wait,
Moana,
Moana,
or
yeah.
Logan, or just the idea that the man is going to sacrifice himself or something, and then
So
out
the
of
woman can
that,
take his place.
the woman is going to take his place. Not man and woman ruling together,
no.
Right.
but the woman taking the man's
Yeah, because
place.
even in the movie, what they do is they zoom in on that tree of life. They zoom in on the boy for a second, and then they're just like,
Well, it's
yeah,
not
and
a-
the boy's like just like a pauper, and the
Yeah.
girl's like queen,
Yeah, right.
scepter.
Yeah,
Right. Yeah. But either way, Amleth thinks that the choosing between kin and hate for his enemies is referring to the moment when he abandons her, when he abandons the woman that he's knocked up, and goes after his uncle. Like that's what he thinks. Pretty obviously, that's what he thinks in the movie.
Mhm.
But
when he's on the ship.
right. But I actually think it's when he kills his mother. Because that's where you see the first inversion of that. That's the first time he actually, the line of kin gets muddied for him. And that's what ultimately confuses him. Because how shall I say this? If that hadn't happened, if his mother had not told him all these things, he probably would have just killed Fjolnir and bounced. And that would have been the end of that. But his mother confused him so much.
Right, that it dragged him even more in.
Right.
Yeah.
So his lack of love for his kin was not him abandoning his wife and children. It was him killing his mother.
But I feel like he didn't have a choice. I mean, he had a choice, obviously.
Well, no, he didn't have to go back. But the moment when
that's the part.
that I think is when that actually happened, because at that point the two became the same thing. Because if that had never happened, I highly doubt he would have been so confused about his motives, and he would have left because it's obvious Fjolnir's not going to come after him. Fjolnir thought he was dead and didn't care.
Mm-hmm.
And even when he found out he was alive, the thing that made vengeance an issue was, you killed his son.
Well, not only did you kill his son, but you killed him in his sleep, so he won't reach Valhalla. You've stolen his heart,
Right.
so they can't bring him to Valhalla without his heart, without performing some ritual. And then he gives him in a sack. He gives him
A
the
dog's
heart, or a duck, or a rabbit.
No, it's a dog.
Was it a dog?
It's a dog. Wild dog.
Oh yeah, that was interesting too. It's like he completely disrespected him by not giving his son the chance to go to Valhalla, Viking heaven.
Well, and I wouldn't even go so far as to say that that's so much the biggest issue. Part of it is that, but he shouldn't have been taking out his vengeance on Fjolnir's household. He should have been doing it to Fjolnir. And once he found out where he was, he probably could have challenged him.
Yeah, but that would make a very short movie.
Right. But this then
But I know what you mean.
This then ties into the whole notion of the crux of our disagreement, I think.
Okay.
Was it a good movie? Did it come full circle?
Did the ending, bring everything together?
Yeah. Okay, why?
Because we live in a post-Christian society, right? We know that things like goodness and love and like forgiveness and stuff actually brings about the best ending, and that's the most satisfying ending, and that's something that you can feel.
Self-sacrifice.
Yeah, and that's something that you can feel in your heart. Like if at any point any of the characters would have just like kind of, I don't know. It's hard to put it into
Forgiven
forgiven or just left, or choosing to take the wound that was inflicted upon them rather than cause another wound. You know, that could have led to something that actually recapitulated the entire story into something that worked and was good.
It could have had a Christian ending.
We know that, right? And so I think your kind of argument is that within the world of pagan gods and only knowing those stories,
that's not going to be the outcome.
That's right. You can't. They didn't have access to that, right?
Right.
So it wouldn't have happened that way. It couldn't have.
Right.
But we live in a post-Christian society. We know that that's
Right, but to the point where,
You
so
know?
back when we were all young, you could still do street evangelism and say, "Hey, you know that Jesus loves you," right? I mean, this is obviously from a very Protestant background, so it's weird and doesn't make sense to us being Orthodox now. But
right.
you could still have those conversations with people, and they would have a general understanding of Christian theology, or at least low church Protestant theology. They would
Right.
be like, "Okay, I have a general, what is it?"
Yeah,
that-
God, Jesus died for our sins, and He loves us, and we should be nice to people.
Right. Yeah, they would know the bullet points of Christian dogma and theory.
Not that those things don't matter.
We don't.
Absolutely.
People today, the people that came up in the generation after us, do not know that story at all. Like the example that I go to is when Jonathan Pageau was talking to Michaela Peterson, right? That interview they did a couple of months ago. She did not know why the Protestant Reformation happened, and like not in the sense of, okay, here's the super fine nuances between John Calvin's theology and Ulrich Zwingli's theology and Martin Luther's theology. It's like she didn't know
Why?
what indulgences were. Like she didn't know the broad picture. Luther was pissed at the Pope.
Right.
And that expands out into the rest of society's interaction with Christianity. They don't know the stories. Like I bet if you were to ask people, what do you know about King David? They would say, oh, he's a mythical king of Israel. Maybe. They might not know
But
beyond
wouldn't
that.
them doing the ending that Garrett is speaking of giving people a chance to know?
No, because this is the movie that Game of Thrones
truth?
was.
Couldn't
This
it
is the
have been a
movie that
gateway?
Game of Thrones is trying to be.
I think
Game of Thrones tries to be a tragedy, but it can't. But George R.R. Martin is so neurotic; he can't get past the notion of having some kind of overarching, preachy moral theme. Even though his moral theme is so flawed that you can't really even put your hands on it.
Well, I think it's noble that he wants to bring it together. But I think that, and that's what everyone wants. Everyone wants, because they say, someone was saying this. I listen to Brandon Sanderson. Sometimes he talks about writing. He made Mistborn series.
I know.
I have no idea who you're talking about.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, anyway,
It's like fantasy. It's
Yeah,
like a fantasy writing.
Fantasy writer. Yeah. And so he basically said, oh dang, no, I forgot what it was. He basically said that like how a story, I think this was him, what a story leaves you with is basically how you think of that story, how you feel about it. So
With the ending for us, that's how I felt at the end.
I felt, I guess.
It made sense in a pagan way,
It
but
was-
I can't see things that way as much as I used to.
And here's the thing: is people have the same exact experience with Game of Thrones, the TV show.
Right.
It was
I hated the
they
way
were
it
having it was so cool. All these people are killing each. Oh, it's crazy, crazy, crazy. And then the ending, it didn't come together into anything. It
No.
sucked.
Yeah, the whole last
It
season.
sucked. Right?
The whole last season was horrible.
It was awful, and everyone knew it.
Like I believe you guys. But also, to be fair, I only watched season 1 of Game of Thrones like right after it came out, and I haven't really seen.
You have to get
Game
to-
of Thrones beyond.
You
that.
have to get to season 3 before you like it.
Well, I also read a lot of the books.
So you think you have to get pretty far before you're like.
So
oh,
I
this is great.
never watched it.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
I watched it all multiple times.
I just know what people have said about it,
and what I'm saying is,
and
like,
I know the basic gist.
But here's how it ties together. Here's how the Northman ties together. It is a flawed eucatastrophic vision of the world, but it is one that is compelling because the whole notion of when he sheds his last tear,
Mm-hmm.
right? I thought that was actually a really, really
Yes.
phenomenal storytelling device. That was really cool.
Mm-hmm.
It was screwed up, but it was cool.
Mm-hmm.
But it
the
almost
first tear he shed was during the initiation ritual with his father, and the last tear he shed was when he died.
yeah, like right before he died. Right. But what made that awesome was it wasn't so nihilistic that it was, oh, he's dying and now he's mourning that he's not going to see these things. He dies happy knowing that he has protected his children, or thinking that he has protected his children.
And when
So
he
there is
would
this-
have protected them without doing it.
Right. So there is this whole notion that he is acting in good faith. His faith is extraordinarily misplaced,
Mm-hmm.
He's very loyal to his family.
but he's acting in a, how should I say this? I would almost say he's acting kind of as a Hector, in not nearly as virtuous as Hector is in the Iliad, but he's acting out of that sense of love for his kin. And like I said, it's a very flawed application of what that ends up being. but it's so close to what is actually accurate.
But again,
It's not what it's supposed to be. Though.
was it a satisfying ending?
I think it was.
Did you feel it as a satisfying ending?
Not in the sense that you're referring to, but I thought it was still very coherent. But getting back to what I said earlier at the beginning about how I think it's a phenomenal movie, one of the best I've seen in years, and that's horrifying, is that it does such a good job explaining the pagan worldview and appealing to people's sense of virtue and twisting it just enough to be out of line with what Christian ethics and the Christian praxis teaches us.
Yeah, basically shows exactly what Christianity isn't.
Well, no, it shows exactly what the world without Christianity is like.
Yeah.
And that is,
oh, this is what you guys want to bring back?
it's scary to me that we have art that is so accurate to that, and people are just going to look at it as, oh, wasn't that artistically beautiful? That's what scares me about it. The portrayal, I'm fine with.
Has Pajot done a review on it yet?
I hope he does. I'd love to hear his thoughts on this. Pajot and,
That'd be interesting.
And Deacon Nicholas, I would love to hear what they have to say about this.
Yeah, I wasn't happy with the ending from a Christian perspective, and that's kind of just how I'm trying to view things. If I had watched that movie a year and a half or 2 years ago, I'd have been like, yes. I would have loved it so much more. But the ending to me, still a good ending, but also
I think it's a great teaching tool.
Viking dental insurance braces? Question mark.
What?
The Valkyrie.
I found
Oh
out.
yeah, that's right. I forgot about that.
Braces,
I found out what it is.
It's supposed to be tattoos, woven tattoos in it.
Whittled.
Yeah.
Whittling down their teeth.
Yes.
They were one of the first civilizations that we found dental manipulation, and apparently they learned it from other countries they had raided, and then started doing some really weird stuff.
Well, no. So you guys know why? So Bluetooth, right? The technology we use. Do you know why that had where that name came from?
Probably
Yeah,
from
for
that.
King, right?
Yeah, King Harold Bluetooth was named that because he would file his teeth
Down.
and stuff woad in the slots in his teeth.
What's woad? Like
It's a bluish purple dye.
Why would he do that? So he had blue teeth?
Yeah. Well, I mean, he didn't have blue teeth per se, but he had like scored teeth with woad packed into it, so it stained that score.
Yeah, it shows like a level of hierarchy.
I have no idea.
But I just thought it was hilarious. It says like braces question mark.
But I mean, again, this movie presents paganism in a more accurate way in pop culture than I have ever seen.
Do you think that's going to make people want paganism more?
I don't think people are going to understand that, and that's what scares me. And also, I think that one of the great things that anyone who's watched the channel for more than 5 minutes knows that I really like Viking lore. So does Ian. Or I'll say Norse lore. Because as we said in the Pagan TikTok video reviews, Vikings aren't a real cultural identity. One of the things that you come across in, say, the Prose Edda or the Poetic Edda or some of these older Viking or Norse rather stories, is this whole notion that from a Christian perspective, these stories can be turned to a good cause, much in the same way that the Iliad and the Odyssey can. And you see that more in the Eastern fathers than the Western. But the whole beginning of the Eddas is Snorri Sturluson talking about who these gods actually are. They're the heroes from Troy, right? And so they ended up being worshipped as gods, and that led to bad things. But they're not actual gods. And I think this movie could kind of illustrate what serving those demons could look like, but people aren't going to perceive that because, again, going back to what Lord of Spirits always talks about and what Pajot's talked about and what we've all talked about before, most non-Christians and even some Christians in the West have this notion that Christianity is monotheistic in the sense that the Trinity is all that exists. And traditionally, that is not the Christian view. And
Or was a real
oh yeah,
God.
like I've told you about that there's some conversations I've had with people with like, oh well, I'm a witch or I'm a this, which means I believe in other gods. I would respond, well, so do I. But you're a Christian. I'm like, yeah, which means I believe in Thor more than you do. I just know he's not worthy of worship, and I don't want to.
And if he showed up right now, I wouldn't be surprised.
I wouldn't be surprised. I'd be rather put out, but I wouldn't be surprised.
Put out. Yeah.
Oh dear.
Yeah. Oh boy.
Yeah, we acknowledge that the pagan gods were real,
Are real.
but
yeah,
worth worshiping. If you want me and Garrett were saying this. If you want the insides of your body to look like the Northman, or if you want your life to look like the Northman,
yeah, it's
then sure. If that's what you're seeking,
yeah.
then
If
maybe
if you want to be when you die just a dead guy hanging from a tree, and that's like the best thing that you can
Right.
become, like
That was actually some of my favorite imagery, not because it was
Yes.
pleasing, but because
It's
it's
spot
actually
on.
it was
accurate. It's like, yeah, you're hanging on the tree of life. It's Yggdrasil is the world tree, right? That's what they're hanging off of,
right,
and they're dead.
right,
Like they're
right.
not receiving
They're
life.
not
They're dead.
there.
They're
They
dead
didn't
rot
get
corpses.
life. Yeah.
Which is rather curious that was seen to be an appealing outcome.
Well, I think that was. I mean, that was the best that paganity could
Yeah.
get to. You
Right.
know. So it's just different shades of bad.
and also even their heaven, it's still just drinking and fornicating and battle.
Oh, okay. So this brings us to weird. Go
Oh,
ahead.
okay. No. You go.
No, go for it.
Well, I looked it up. It's actually like the what's it called?
The Valhalla?
Valhalla.
The Hall of the Great Ones.
It's what we definitely know about it is that it was a preparatory thing for Ragnarok.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's your
Ragnarok.
it's-
Ragnarok's like the unending battle.
Yeah.
No.
well,
Ragnarok
it's
is the
death
battle
of
at the end of time. It's the death of the gods.
Death of the gods,
Death of
right.
the Aesir.
Yeah.
After which the world is recreated.
Right, and it's all like paradise again.
Right.
Yeah.
But the thing
It's
that's
almost right.
because all
Well,
of
that's what they say.
because all of the half-breed god-spawned demons that torture the world, like Jormungand or the Fenris Wolf or all these other demons,
Hex Odin.
are killed.
Yeah.
Well, but that's what makes it great is the wolf is killed, the giants are killed,
Mm-hmm.
the gods die too, with the
Mhm.
exception of one. I forget which god it is that survives Ragnarok.
I think I know Balder.
Balder dies.
Well, no,
Balder's already
Balder
dead.
comes out of hell afterwards. Actually,
Is
I
it
think.
Balder?
I
I
think
forget.
so. Well, it's Balder and the guy who killed Balder, and then there's two. There's two I forgot.
Yeah. But yeah, just a couple of the gods survive. But Valhalla is the recruitment center for the warriors that are going to stand with the Aesir during Ragnarok,
Yeah.
during which they all know they're going to die
yeah,
and they're going to lose.
yeah,
But here's how this ties into the idea of weird, because this is something that
Yeah.
Ian and I have debated a lot lately. And for anyone who's watching who can explain this better, I'm sorry, I'm not good at explaining this particular
and
topic.
also for the watchers, could you spell weird?
WYRD.
Yeah, because people won't know what you're saying.
It's this notion of fate, but not in the Greek sense, not in the Greek tragic sense or the Greek comedic sense. It's this good. Oh, dang, I don't even know where to start. So the three Norns, right? They're the ones who weave fate. They're the ones who weave your weird.
The three women.
Yeah, they live at the base of Yggdrasil, and the loom of fate, I guess, is one might call it.
Yeah, they write your
Is
story.
something that is being made in real time, whatever that means in this particular context. But it's not something that's done before the foundations of the world, and you have to live
Mm-hmm.
this path. It's you are supposed to live a courageous and honorable life, no matter what. So that's what a lot of Amlet's struggle is in this. Is he doesn't know how to embrace his weird in an honorable way. That's why he's torn.
Yeah.
So when he says his weird decrees it, he's not necessarily saying I have no choice. He's saying this is how I meet my fate well,
Mm-hmm.
with courage and honor,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that ends up turning into dishonorable things like killing your half brother and killing your mother.
Mm-hmm.
So his weird, in many ways, his weird was to die. I guess we can put it that way. His weird was to die with Fjolnir, but he met it very dishonorably in many ways.
Yeah.
That's why I was saying to you yesterday that I think there's such an incoherence in paganism with like having a predestined fate, but also having like this overwhelming sense of free will to be more than the next person. It's like, well, if the gods have already woven your fate, then why does it matter? If you're predestined, especially
Well,
like
it's not quite a matter of
It's not quite
a matter of predestination. It's kind of like
your destiny changes depending on what you're doing and
it's
what
not
the
even
gods
that your
choose.
destiny changes. It's at the end point. So we have a phrase that kind of reflects this in the modern era with warfare, right? And it was hilariously represented in the last season of Blackadder, where Baldric, who is kind of the idiot footman for Rowan Atkinson's character, is he's got a bullet out, and because this happens during World War I, he's got a bullet out and he's carving on the bullet. And Hugh Laurie comes in, who is also a complete and utter putz in this series. He goes, Baldric, what are you doing? And he goes, I'm carving my name on a bullet, sir. Hugh Laurie's like, why would you do that? And he goes, well, everyone says that there's a bullet with your name on it, so I figure if I'm the one that has it, I can't be killed.
That's almost cute.
I mean, it's kind of cute, but it's weird. It's hilarious. But that's kind of this notion of weird. It's when your time comes, and you can't do anything to stop it. The question is, what does the journey to that moment look like? Do you live life as a coward and as just a terrible
Or
person?
do you write your name on? Do you write your name on the bullet, or do you accept the bullet that somebody else has written your name on?
No. It's not even that. Do you live your life saying, if there's a bullet with my name on it today, then
So be it.
So be it. I'm going to live courageously until then,
Or haha, I've got my name.
or am I going to hide in the trench and hope that the bullet doesn't find me? Right. That's kind of the notion. I'm doing a very bad job of explaining this, but that's kind of the idea. It's the end goal. When you die, in what state will you meet your
So I guess that was my misunderstanding of the movie when he kept saying, "This is my fate. I'm bound to my fate," and then eventually he's like, "I'm not bound to my fate." I'm like, well, which one is it, dude? Are you destined to do this, or are you not destined to do this? Do you have free will, or do you not have free will because your path has been laid out before you?
And I was wondering too when I was hearing stuff like that, like, is that modern kind of thing? Sleep? Because when he kind of rejects his fate, that's very America right now.
Well,
America the last
right.
however
50,
many,
60 years.
50, 60 years.
Well, I mean, he's kind of trying to do that, especially when he's on the ship with Olga. He's kind of trying to do that, but at the same time, he also thinks that because like I said, he doesn't know she's pregnant at this point. So he thinks, okay, well, I'm just going to leave because Fjolnir's this is all going to be squared away. He's not going to leave Iceland. He has no place to come back. He has no place with which nothing. He can't chase me. He can't really come after me. Right. Especially if they go to Scotland, which is where they're planning on going, to the Danelaw. Right. Or not Scotland, but Britain, to the Danelaw. At that point, he thinks he has chosen love for his kin, but he doesn't understand who the referent is. Like I said, it's either his mother or the kids. I think it's his mother.
Love for his kin would have meant staying.
Right. So what he's meaning is he's rejecting the path of vengeance, not that he's rejecting his own death. Because he thinks that his weird is vengeance, which is kind of true. But I don't know. I don't know how to explain this well. I'm sorry.
Concept.
Well, if anybody else can chime in on that.
Yeah, tell us in the comments.
But any final thoughts? Recommend seeing it?
Yeah, I do.
I'm torn on this because, like I said, it was one of the best and simultaneously one of the most frightening movies I've ever seen. And I don't recommend that people frighten themselves unnecessarily. If you see it, definitely be praying beforehand. I mean, incidentally, by the grace of God, perhaps. The entire time I was in there, I had my prayer rope out and I was running through it. Like, that wasn't something that I set out to do as any kind of...
I'm sure I said a few songs in there.
Yeah, and I ended up running through my prayer rope dozens of times during the whole movie because it was just so off-putting and so disconcerting in so many ways. So, bearing that in mind...
Keep that thing on you.
If paganism is something that is a draw for you, or you don't want to see people invoking demons, how that would actually happen, not how you see it in movies like Supernatural or whatever, or shows like Supernatural, don't go see it.
Yeah, because I had somebody reach out to me and said they love the videos we're doing, but they're gonna stop watching and unfollow because they don't want to see videos about babies being aborted or satanic ritual stuff. And I understand
That's the world we live in.
But I understand some people, can't. We all have different passions, and certain things trigger them. So, some of these videos you guys might not like. I can respect that, but I think we had a conversation today, and it kind of rings true that we are called to expose these things, and there are things that it's a time we live in. How we do it, if we can be charitable, and sometimes we're not, unfortunately. I think that's kind of what matters. So some of the videos we're going to be doing in the future are definitely not going to be for the faint of heart.
Well, your Megan Fox blood drinking Satanism video was definitely not for that. Some of the stuff you said made me want to crawl out of my skin.
And I toned it down from the words I was reading.
Oh, I know. I'm familiar with the kind of literature you were referencing, but
Yeah.
Reading it on a page is one thing. Hearing it spoken is a completely different thing.
Yeah. So with that being said, I don't know. I don't really have any final thoughts.
John, do you have any final thoughts?
So I did want to kind of
Let's keep going. Yeah.
no, say what I was trying to say. This is just like a thing that I think is that how we were talking, is that what people really want? I think the modern world is kind of swimming in that, and I think what I was trying to say, I kind of got a little loud. I apologize for that. There's forceful or whatever. But about the George R. R. Martin thing is that I think there is a real connection between the way that he told his stories and the things he believes in while he's telling his stories, and the fact that he can't finish his story and that his thing didn't work out.
We're kind of stuck.
Well, that if you follow this path, if you follow the Game of Thrones,
These
patterns or vengeance or whatever, necessarily the ending you get is like, well, that wasn't good. That didn't make any of it fit together. That was unappealing.
That's because nihilism has no crux.
Right.
I guess.
Which doesn't bring things together. It doesn't satisfy.
Yeah. It has no crux, and that's one of the reasons why I think that the Northman is significantly better than Martin, because it does have a crux. It's inverted, but it's still there. And modern storytelling is really, really bad at resolving this crux. It's kind of like the whole. It's one of the reasons why I think so many people didn't like. I won't say didn't like, but why there was. How should I put this? Why there was that debate in Avengers Endgame, right? When after Black Widow commits suicide or whatever to get the Soul Stone or whatever it is. One of the reasons why I think that dialogue in the aftermath, where they're trying to figure out, well, what are we going to do to get her back, was hard for a lot of people to watch. Which I haven't actually looked into this, but I suspect it was really hard for a lot of people to watch, because the whole notion of an infinity of what they're achieving is we have the power to do whatever we want in the universe, and then this is them butting up against the notion that no, you're not a god. Like, you're not the ones who created the universe. You don't get to make the rules.
Right.
I mean, the rules in that universe are a pretty bloody big sandbox. You have a lot of room to mess around, but there are defined edges. You can't do stuff outside of those things.
Right.
And that's where Martin fails. Is his universe is just full of people deciding to do whatever they want. Whenever he wants to introduce some sort of new element, he just makes up a new religion to allow him to do that thing. And again, in the Northman, there were very heavily defined or very narrowly defined rules. Like, these are the things you can do. This is how you can do them. This is the outcome if you do this.
Well, people also like the whole sandbox analogy. People in modern society don't realize that our sandbox is a lot smaller than the one in Avengers.
Right.
And we still think that we can get away with doing whatever because we are our own gods. And we very quickly see, or we get glimpses of it when something happens that we thought we had control over. And we're like, oh, wait a second. I don't have control over anything. And that's, I think, where, giving your life to Christ is very freeing, because you can accept that, although every day it's hard.
Well, what was it that Father John said earlier today when we were talking to him? He said something to the effect of, if you are successful, glory to God, or God's will be done, or how do you say it?
Yeah, he said, if things fall apart, may it be blessed.
Yeah. If things go well, may it be blessed. If things go so catastrophically south that you're living in a gutter off of pennies a day, may it be blessed. And in many ways, that's, again, coming back to the Northman for a minute, that's kind of one of the themes they're putting forward. Like I said, it's in a pagan way, but they're still talking about the notion, like, you worship whichever god or whichever gods, you do the things according to the parameters they give you, and the outcome be damned. That's not your business. The outcome is what you do in the meantime. Or the business is what you do in the meantime. And that's, like I said, it's very similar to to Christianity, but so far in many ways. I think, that if we're doing closing thoughts, is that what we're
Yeah,
doing?
I
Sure.
don't have much else to say. I think
Okay.
we covered it pretty well. There might be some things that we'll remember afterwards, but
Right.
so it goes.
Well, if we're doing closing thoughts, I've probably already said this, so I'll just try to be concise for a moment. I know that's one of my weak, weak character points, but the Northman shows what a pagan world really looks like. If you want to abandon, the Christian God, as people are so fond of saying now, that is the world that the Northman portrays is what you're going to live in. It's not going to be sex, drugs, and rock and roll. It's not going to be
Well, there'll be sex and drugs.
right, but it's not going to be that whole concept of
Utopia.
yeah, libertine. I can do whatever I want. And it's not going to be super crazy. It's
Free
going
love,
to be
no consequences.
It's going to be the strongest get to do what they want, but still live in fear of the loss of their strength, and the weak suffer through that and become petty tyrants and cruel men in their own way.
And everybody damns themselves.
And everyone goes to hell.
Yeah.
And the only consolation you have in that is that you might get the last laugh before you bleed to death on a volcano. Like, seriously.
Yeah, that's it. That's
And
exactly it.
if you want to live in that world, then you're either supremely overconfident in your abilities, or you have very flawed. I mean, obviously, you already have flawed views, but no one wants to live in that world.
And keep
if they
it
can.
far, far away from me.
There's a reason why Christianity conquered the world through the blood of the martyrs, and why the swords of Rome couldn't do what a few hundred, like comparatively a few thousand Christian martyrs could do.
Yeah.
Yep.
Any other final thoughts?
No, I'm good.
Well, hope this was unenjoyable.
3 guys in a futon.
3 guys. That sounds like a horrible. Yeah.
It's not as bad.
Anyway.
Not as bad as sweater vest dialogues.
3 beards, 1 futon.
Ah!
All right. Well,
Which one are you losing?
Continuing on.
Okay.
well, hope you enjoyed this. Make sure to like and subscribe. And the audio may not be perfect, so we apologize. We're using a different mic since we only have 2 for the podcast. And then this video will be up in the next few days. Our conversation with Father John from Death to the World was amazing today. Very edifying. Corrected a lot of things that we might have had thoughts on previously, and I think you guys will enjoy it. There'll be more to come. We're already talking about potentially doing something soon. So, yeah, Christ is risen.
Really is risen.
And may God bless and guide you guys. And go see the Northman if you want. Maybe get some spiritual guidance on if you should or not. But we'd love to know your thoughts if you've already seen it. Correct anything that we may have completely screwed up. And yeah, this was kind of our takeaway from it. And I think there will be some things we didn't mention, which is what usually happens. But
it wasn't as off-putting as the Green Knight.
Yeah,
That was so awful.
Yeah.
But if you've watched the channel for a while, you already know my thoughts on that. So,
yeah. Well, John, thanks for being here.
It's been a pleasure.
Yeah.
Thanks for enjoying your sparkling wine. Your
Thank you.
non-alcoholic sparkling wine.
Thank you. It was
Out of
good.
your goblet.
I appreciate it.
You told me to put something in there and dye it red.
We didn't dye it red.
But yeah,
No.
cheers, guys, and
God bless.
we'll see you soon.